Hello, and welcome to the first in a series of sector-based webinars from the Awin Group. My name is Parmar-Yee, and I am the Telecoms and Finance Plan Partner from Awin UK. And rather appropriately, today's webinar will be covering the telecom sector, including some trends we've seen across Awin, and then a discussion on the key developments that will shape the industry in the coming months and years. So today we will be presenting some slides, but I'm also joined by four expert panelists from across the sector. Victoria O'Dowd, Rob Baillie, Caroline Mulvihill, and Ulrich Rozier. I will do proper introductions later on after the slides. So on to some pre-discussion insights. At Awin, we're incredibly proud to power the affiliate programs of leading telecoms companies across the world, be that internet service providers, networks, MVNOs, streaming services, and much more. The expertise of our account management teams means that established players as well as challenge brands are able to benefit from the power of the Awin network. The data from our advertiser and publisher partners has helped inform the insights that I will be presenting today. So I guess we need to look at the 2020 performance so far. So looking at 2020 based on looking at the Awin data, it's unsurprising to see obviously 2020 is sort of shaping up to be quite a tough year. So just firstly to cover off the market mix, looking at the territories that contribute to the Awin Telecoms data set. Obviously, the UK is a major contributor to the data, and that's due to the affiliate channel being often being the largest or one of the largest contributors to that sector. However, obviously, the trends that we're seeing in the UK are very similar to what we're seeing across other territories. So the insights from that territory and from other territories, it also blends into one picture. And that picture that we're seeing, it shows a clear growing year-on-year decrease. So on the graph, the dotted line represents where that month was in 2019 in terms of sale. So whilst the coronavirus is the biggest factor contributing here, we've also seen other factors contributing it, especially early in the year before the pandemic really took hold. So we're seeing obviously weaker performance within sort of mobile telecom communications in general. So things that were expected to drive volumes, such as the Samsung Galaxy S20 launch, were a lot weaker than expected. And then obviously once the coronavirus sort of kicked in, we saw supply issues impacting volumes across all of our markets there. In addition, we also saw impacts on TV. So with a number of, obviously with sports being cancelled and a number of major sporting competitions that normally drives a huge volume of premium TV sales being cancelled or postponed, that's again had impacts on the global picture. So whilst obviously it's been quite a tough thing, there are some glimmers of hope. So looking at some specifics within the UK broadband space, we're still seeing actually year-on-year growth, and May's data is trending to show a narrowing of the year-on-year gap. So there are clearly some challenges to overcome in the second half of 2020, but maybe just based on the trending data to date for May, potentially the worst may be over for now. So whilst the webinar will not be about coronavirus, I think it's important to look at the picture in some of our main telecoms territories. So just waiting. So we've got some graphs here which show the impact of lockdowns and restrictions on our key telecoms markets across the Awin Group. And hopefully this will help illustrate the impacts of lockdowns and also if anything's changed since then. So the picture is mixed, with many territories seeing surges in demand as it became apparent that working, educating and entertaining yourself was now more reliant on a reliable and stable and good internet connection. And so in a number of territories, obviously saw a number of spikes driven by these sort of lockdown or restrictions coming into place. That being said, we also saw sort of limits on supply causing dips. And it depends on how strict the lockdown measures were. So if you look at the graph for the French market, you can see obviously an immediate dip after the lockdown sort of came into place. And that's obviously due to restrictions on engineers or operations that would obviously allow new connections. And then you sometimes see a combination of the two. So in most cases, you see either one happen and then the other or the other way around. But in the UK, it's really prevalent. So the UK were quite soft with their lockdown restrictions. So they saw the spike, obviously, as people worked from home. But then as the restrictions tightened after advice by the British government on more restrictions, we saw limitations on installations there that affected obviously all markets, but particularly the home telecoms sector. So, but that being said, so as time has gone on, and you can see this in all markets, and we try to mark out as well any points where there's easing on lockdown. You can see that there's sort of a leveling on the market out, and it's clear that people are still buying telecoms products. In fact, Awin's data on product mix is showing that people are more likely than ever to opt for more premium products. So the products that have more data offered or faster speeds. And so whilst obviously there have been impacts in terms of sales number, it may mean that customer revenue may actually increase over time. We're also seeing increases in products such as mobile broadband as well, which historically is more of a niche, but this is probably potentially in response to the supply issues of more traditional products. So whilst the coronavirus has proved challenging for us all, the shift it is driving may prove an opportunity for the players in the space. And the changes in the distribution of sales per month, so potentially with the spikes you're seeing more sales earlier in the year than expected, it may impact what the shape of the rest of 2020 looks like. And because obviously we're looking at products which are subscription products that often have 12, 18 or 4-month terms on it, you might also see the shape change over the coming years as those subscribers move in and out of contract. So with all these shifts in consumer habits, it's an interesting time for the sector. The consumer's demand for speed and data is being matched with further developments and rollouts of technology such as fiber to the home and mobile 5G. Now, 5G is a really hot topic, and not just because conspiracy theorists are setting the masts on fire. Many companies are using its speeds and low latency to bring new products to the market, such as reliable mobile home broadband for the entire home, as well as interesting new applications such as mobile cloud computing or gaming. Now, within the mobile the more traditional mobile phone and smartphone sector, data from the company Counterpoint Research suggests that despite the growth in 5G handsets, the global smartphone market may actually be on its first major downturn and shrinkage, with data showing decreases in sales of 13% year on year. That being said, the market may be responding. So you've got handsets like the relaunched iPhone SE making plays for at a lower price. And then there's a lot of rumors about obviously upcoming handsets such as the Google Pixel line, as well as potentially the next iPhones potentially seeing price decreases and maybe suggesting that for the first, maybe we're now going to finally start seeing prices for smartphones start to really fall down. But that being said, I think it will be really interesting to see how handset manufacturers look at the trends here and look to revitalize the market. And then the final trend really is this fiercely competitive sector is seeing a new kind of differentiator. And this time it's focused around content. So particularly in the US, many major telecoms now own a lot of the major content studios. So for example, AT&T now own HBO. And there is a real play to have exclusive content on your streaming platform. As we see TV products continue to unbundle and new streaming services continue to pop up and emerge. And this US trend is going global. With the European launch of Disney Plus earlier this year, I think it's something that was likely to continue. So the complexity has seen more partnerships emerge though. So we're seeing a number of traditional telecoms and streaming services that potentially these traditional telecoms once saw as threats to their services, now also working together to bundle streaming products into broadband or into mobile contracts. So whilst we may be all at home watching Star Wars, we're potentially now taking part in the streaming wars. So that was a bit of a taster of the Awin data and some of the topics there. So to discuss these topics, I'm joined by these four panelists that I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to go and give some proper introductions now. So firstly, we are joined by Victoria O'Dowd, who is the head of e-commerce at Free UK. So Free are part of CK Hutchinson Group and are one of the UK's big four mobile network operators, carrying 40% of the UK's mobile data traffic. They're known for continuing to innovate and push the market in new exciting directions, including being one of the first providers of 5G-powered mobile home broadband. So I'm sure she'll have lots of great things to say about our 5G future. We're also joined by Robert Baillie, who's Commercial Manager at Decision Technologies, otherwise known as Decision Tech, who are part of the Money Supermarket Group. So Decision Tech run and power some of the largest comparison sites within the UK. And with expertise in home, mobile, and business-to-business telecoms products, I look forward to his thoughts and opinions from a publisher perspective. Then we have industry veteran Caroline Mulvihill, who's been a leading voice within the performance marketing space. After half a decade at BT, she is now launching an exciting new TV comparison service, Switch TV, which focuses on users' viewing habits as opposed to purely being focused on price. And as if starting a new service from the ground up isn't a full-time job, she's also a consultant for a mix of advertisers and publishers across the performance marketing space. And whilst I'm sure she'll have plenty to say about TV, I'm sure her in-depth sector understanding will be very much welcome to the panel. And then finally, we have Ulrich Rozier, who's joining us from our French territory. So he's the founder of a French independent online media publisher called Humanoid, and they've got two main sites. So they've got Frandroid, which gets 21 million page views a month and covers the latest developments in all things tech, be that from smart homes to self-driving cars. The site's articles and video content include reviews, news, comparisons, and much more. The other site the other main site in their portfolio is Numera, and it sort of looks at sort of present trends to anticipate the future as tech continues to shape the society. So Ulrich is supported by a great team at Humanoid, but he still continues to write about the latest developments in this space. So I'm sure he'll be able to help us make sense of the major developments we discussed today. So I'm going to begin with some starter questions that we've prepared. However, do submit your questions via the Teams Q&A and submit them to, and if you'd like them to be covered by a specific panelist, obviously do go and mention that in your question. And we will try and answer as many of them as possible. But thank you to the panel for joining us today. So the first question that I'm going to ask to Victoria from Free, and the question here is, and it's particularly linked to some of the data we've seen sort of coming up, is from an advertiser perspective, are there any changes you've noticed in the last couple of months in how consumers are interacting with your business?
I think from our perspective, customer interaction had to change essentially overnight. We have an entire contact centre operation that sits offshore, as well as our website platform. And what we found when the world went into lockdown was there was no channel or choice, if you like. Customers essentially had to look to our social platforms, look to our website to get in contact with us. And what that meant was a huge rise in the interaction of our social media campaigning, because that became an immediate channel for customers to interact with. It was instant, it didn't turn off, and it was available to them at all points in time. So our platforms from an advertising perspective to do social campaigning was really our first way to get in contact with customers en masse when their home environment had changed so substantially. So our outdoor media, for example, wasn't necessarily being seen by people in the same way as they travelled to work or as they travelled about their day-to-day business. So that became our first outreach to really get in touch with customers and to make sure that they knew we were still here and that we were still providing service and that we were still very much open for them to interact with us as a brand.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I know we've spoken about obviously all the interesting sort of new bits of content as well, or adding engagement of different contents in the site, which I imagine has been particularly important as obviously the retail stores closed as well. Definitely.
Content, especially again with a lens on the COVID environment, we had to think about why customers wanted to interact with us at that point in time. So educational articles about how to work from home, how to connect your children's tablets, how to make the most out of the working from home environment were essential to us. So content definitely became not only a sales platform as it always has been, but it definitely became a way to bring our brand to life for customers during a period when they really looked to their network providers for some, I guess, inspiration on how to stay connected and how to reach out to people in a completely new way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it brings me nicely on to actually a question I'd like to direct at Rob from Decision Tech. And this is sort of the flip side, I think, really of it. But as a publisher operating in the telecom space, have you witnessed any sort of similar changes in sort of the products that consumers are searching for, or the types of content that on your publisher side that they're engaging with?
Yeah, sure. So I think you spoke about mobile broadband initially, and we've seen a massive spike in people engaging with content we have on site for that. So I think from February to April, we've seen 133% increase in people searching for that and then landing on those pages. And then also into traditional guides that we have on site around working from home. And then we've added a load more content as well in regards to like switching and yeah, again, like Victoria said, the same sort of stuff around making the most of working from home. And then alongside that as well, we've actually built out what we innovative feature which maps out all the different switching options for people. So to kind of ease the nervousness around switching, given the current climate, we built that out, and it was built and rolled out within a week, and over 20% of users are actually engaging with that as well, which has been a massive success for us.
Yeah, no, I really liked actually the guides there, and it's really crucial actually for sites such as Decision Tech and obviously all the sites that you power, obviously, to go and help consumers make these really sort of informed decisions when there's so much uncertainty. I mean, have you seen, as well as obviously mobile broadband, have you seen like any take-ups in other things? So I know there's obviously the theory that we're all stuck at home and watching TV more. Have you seen much engagement from on those sort of products as well, or increases, or has it just been relatively the same?
It's mainly been the same. I mean, I think it's been challenging, certainly with triple play, because of the fact that it's not been available to a lot of people because you need an engineer out. But yeah, apart from that, everything's been pretty normal in terms of demand, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that brings me really nicely on to another question I'd like to ask Caroline. And so obviously, yeah, with traditional TV potentially having issues, but also the emergence of streaming platforms that I mentioned earlier, or the streaming wars. So obviously we've seen competition really heating up in this field over the last couple of years. And so Caroline, I was wondering, how do you think the increasing complexity of that sector is influencing consumer behaviour?
I think it's tricky for consumers because you've got your traditional providers, broadband, that might have a TV product bundled in with it, and then you've got the OTT products, the over-the-top products such as Netflix or BritBox or Disney Plus, and there's more and more coming out, all the time. We're hearing more and more things coming from across the pond, and I think it's really tricky to navigate what is the right bundle for you. So you're seeing a lot of the traditional broadband providers then bundle in things like Netflix and Amazon and Disney into their traditional packages, and that obviously then is helping customers to access the streaming providers, and maybe a wider audience access those streaming providers, because maybe younger people have been au fait with how to get Netflix onto your TV for a long time, but people in the older generation maybe struggle with that. So actually having it bundled in with a broadband provider with very easy kind of steps on how to do that is quite a smart move for those providers. But we're not seeing them push that out. We're starting to see that only just becoming kind of pushed out within the marketing. So, Sky TV have Sky Ultimate that has Netflix in it, and BT obviously have the flexibility within the packs of adding in the Now TV packs that gives you access to Sky's content. So you're seeing this kind of merging, and it does make me wonder whether, to your point earlier about the content and network providers actually coming together, it does make me wonder whether there'll be more of that in the UK, and whether actually content companies will buy network providers or network providers will buy content, and it would be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And yeah, I've got a question about some consolidation stuff, which I maybe will direct to you in a moment. But I've got, so this is a question for Ulrich. So I know obviously he, as I said, Frandroid obviously covers a number of tech developments. And I think obviously, yeah, there's obviously lots of developments in terms of the services available, but obviously, I guess there's also a number of products and new technologies coming. And so, Ulrich, I was wondering, looking ahead to the rest of the year, are there any major product launches or releases that you think are going to be really important for the sort of telecoms and services industry? And do you have any sort of thoughts on how they might fare?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just going to say, so looking ahead to the rest of 2020,
Yes.
are there any major products that might be launching that you think will be particularly important for the telecoms industry?
Yes, you know, in France, we were still waiting for the launch of 5G networks. I think we are the last in Europe. So it's been delayed because of the lockdown, but we're expecting the launch before the end of the year. It's really difficult to estimate the impact of 6 months delay, but because France is one of the last European countries where 5G is not yet available. So we're waiting for a lot of smartphones with 5G compatible, but without the networks in France. I think maybe we can have even smartphone at 3 or 4 euros with 5G compatible, so it's a good thing. There is a big change in brand smartphone market share. Samsung remains a strong leader, but Chinese brands such as Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, Realme will gain significant market share in Europe. And of course, at the beginning of the lockdown, people bought a lot of computers and accessories like webcam, keyboards, because they won't equip their homes to work at home. So it was really interesting to see. Just to talk about that, our media has been much more visited during this period. Android reached 20 million visits in April. We usually have 30 million visits per month, so it was impressive. And the same observation on Numerama.com, the audience increased by 100% over March and April. And it's really interesting because since the end of the lockdown, the audience is always important. So maybe.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's really interesting, actually. Yeah, so obviously you're mentioning the change to 5G and stuff, and obviously the emergence of the Chinese manufacturers who I guess are targeting, I guess, a slightly different thing. And I mean, 5G potentially is going to be might be marketed as a premium product. Do you think that consumers in France do you think it will be something that they're really looking forward to, or do you think that it's going to be a bit of there's still a bit of a consumer education that's needed for it?
So, yes, we don't know actually. I think the lockdown was critical for the deployment of the 5G networks, especially in France. We are already very late. But on one side, we realized that the 5G networks was very necessary to support the use of the internet, like communications, video games, and services like Netflix, Disney+. But however, it was unfortunately also an opportunity to spread fake news about 5G. And I'm sure you have seen the image of equipment burnt in the UK. I think it was. So it will take a long time to convince people of the importance of 5G network, I think.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I mean, Victoria, I was just wondering, so I think 5G was, before this all sort of kicked off, I think it was expected to have a big year in 2020, with more companies, I guess, trying to make it available to consumers across the globe. Do you think the lockdown has been sort of detrimental to its promotion, or as I also said, do you think it's maybe emphasized exactly why the upgrade is such a valuable one in today's world?
Yeah, I think the importance of being connected has definitely been forced into the limelight in a way that means that people are looking for the easiest ways to stay in contact, and 5G is a huge critical enabler for us to be more connected than ever. I think when you think about the current climate that we're in, though, I think the learnings that we're all taking out of it really is the value of human interaction and the fact that we've really missed that. And I think that there will probably be an adjustment period of people taking more advantage of real life social environments in a way that might not have happened previously, that might just slow down that demand slightly to say, actually, I'm not going to sit at home and watch Netflix this weekend because I've done it for 3 months in a row. I'm going to step out and I'm going to spend time with my phone down and spend a little bit more time engaging in a human manner. I think there will be an element of that. I think the key thing for 5G, though, that everyone's learning about depending on technology so much, I think it will be less about speed initially and just more about reliability. We just need this technology to work. It's so important. Working at home, I know we've all probably before we logged on thought, please let my Wi-Fi hold up for this entire connection. Those are the kinds of things that are more important than ever. And the stability and the technology just being there and working, I think, will be the key shout for 5G initially, and then migrating into the big advantages that can bring with speed and connectivity and all the things that can unlock. I don't think they will be quite as desirable in the first sort of wave of campaigning that it might have been if this hadn't have happened. That's kind of where my head is at on it. I don't think it slowed it down, but I think the dependency for it will probably be a slightly different prioritisation that people will look at now.
Yeah, and so do you think that in a way, I guess, like that brands and maybe publishers who maybe were going to go down this speed approach are sort of having to potentially rethink their strategies, I think, in terms of how to market it?
I think there will be a lot of replanning in the sense of what is the consumer appetite. I think Ulrich touched on it really nicely, that there obviously has been some detrimental press coverage from a 5G perspective, that as much as you can try and re-educate people, there will always be that little bit of hangover that we'll need to deal with and we'll need to think about in a brand perspective. How do we tackle that head on? How do we make sure consumers can see the true benefit of this? I think that for the next few months, everyone will focus on those same areas of prioritising being connected and the technology enhancement that we can have. I think Rob touched on a really nice point that we're seeing in telco, which is people don't want to take drastic change at the moment for fear of instability or fear of recommitting to a contract when their own financial situation might change, or if they move providers and their connectivity isn't as good. There's a lot of those unknown factors that I think will definitely change consumer behaviour, and I don't think anyone's quite ready to say exactly how yet, but I do think that from a replanning point of view, that is something that all of the network operators will really have to consider, and we're certainly considering.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I mean, actually, it might be worth asking Rob the next question then. So I think obviously the complexity of the telecom space is sort of how complex it's got in terms of the products and offerings. Obviously, yeah, and there's also obviously needs for different ways of messaging things. Do you think that affiliate partners can play an important role for advertisers in terms of education and brand awareness, or do you think that primarily it's still just going to be about promoting products by price?
Sure. So I think obviously price is always going to be important, but there is a lot of stuff that we can do. Like our editorial team are always writing new relevant content in regards to like everything that's going on. And I know that given our strong domain authority, we always rank well on this type of content. And then within that, we always have like the product listings within there and what we call best buys as well. So there's also the option for the customer to buy once they've gone through the content. So yeah, I think definitely there is more that can be done, but I think we do quite a good job of it, in my opinion. And yeah, so sure. Yeah. I mean,
Ulrich, I don't know if that's sort of mirrored, I think, from your side. So I know obviously for Android, you've got a lot of news and information, but I know you also talk about like the deals and some of the best offers in the market. Do you find consumers engaged equally as well with both, or do you find that they're more interested in hearing about the deals, or what sort of ratio do you normally see on for Android?
Yeah, on Android, For instance, we never published a deal because a product was at a discount price. We publish a deal because it's a discount price, but also an excellent product. So if we can say it's an excellent product, it's because we review a lot of products from different categories like smartphones, computer, TV, and so on. We have eight journalists, tech journalists just for Frondroid, and review our the most expensive content to produce. It takes skill, time, and of course a lot of money. And to turn this deal into a purchase, people must know what they're buying, its qualities, but also their weakness. But the readers must know that is a fair price for it. So our point of view, a good price is not enough to generate sales. As I said, you need a product you can recommend. But you must also make this recommendation in a context of trust with your readers. This trust is the most important thing. It's very difficult to convince a reader to read us and to trust us.
Yeah, that's really interesting from that side. So we're going to go into the panel questions in a second, but I've got one question for Caroline, and I think someone has actually asked it as well within the panel. And so I'll direct it here. So there's obviously one of the big pieces of news from the UK telecom sector is Virgin and O2's sort of merger, and that will obviously consolidate two of the UK's biggest consumer telecoms brands. And potentially you might have some insight, obviously, from your time at BT, because I know you were there as well around the time of the EE sort of acquisition. But do you think that this type of consolidation is the natural direction of travel for the telecoms industry in the near future, or do you think actually maybe we'll just keep seeing new companies emerge instead?
It's a tricky one. I think some of the biggest costs that telcos have to bear are things like, the masts. So actually, for companies to merge together and be able to share those costs brings huge benefits to them. So I think more companies will be looking to merge together, and because there's strength in numbers, right? So if you've got someone huge like BT and EE joining together, then actually, it makes sense to join together to try and be more competitive with someone who's got the network and the mass capability as well. It's whether the Competition Markets Authority will allow it though as well, because obviously there have been deals, and Victoria will know this all too well. There have been deals such as 3 and 2 in the past that have actually been rejected. So there's an element of that as well. So yeah, I think more people will attempt it. It's whether it will get through that test, because obviously if there's too much consolidation, then ultimately that's not necessarily great for consumers, because the amount of choice is taken away. And at the moment, the barriers to entry in the telco market are pretty high as well. So it's not something that someone can necessarily jump into that easily. So it's going to be interesting. I think there will definitely be more attempts at consolidation. It's whether they will be allowed.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I mean, if the merger goes ahead, do you think that it potentially might actually benefit competition, because there's then a sort of a strong fixed line and mobile provider to compete with BT and EE, or are you, maybe it's too early to know?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how the investigation goes, and like you said, whether that will go ahead. I'm not sure. I'm not sure actually. If I rather than put my industry hat on, if I put my consumer hat on, I'm not sure whether it is a great thing or not. As an industry, yeah, it's great, because you, like I say, you're sharing costs and resources. But that's what the CMA will look at.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Cool. So I'm going to go to the panel questions. I know there's been a lot submitted, so we're going to go and try and get through as many of them as possible. And if you have a question that you really like, do also upvote the questions, and it will make sure it goes right to the top of our list. So this one is really highly upvoted, and again, it's for Caroline. So Caroline, do you see much of a threat to the TV bundle providers from something like Roku, which has like all of the key streaming platforms in one, as well as live TV combined. So I guess, yeah, do you think that these potentially tech upstarts might threaten, I guess, yeah, these plays that we're seeing being made by Sky and BT to try and combine it?
Definitely. And you know, whilst you were working for a big telco, you'd never describe telecommunications as utility, because you would be marched out of the room for saying that. But you know, it can be hard to differentiate sometimes between telco providers if you haven't got all that information on customer service levels, the speeds, reliability, contention ratios, all the different things that go into making a fantastic service. So yeah, you hear people talk about brands such as Netflix and Disney Plus. You don't necessarily down the pub, and not down the pub anymore, but obviously pre-lockdown, you'd hear people be very positive about what they were watching on Netflix, or you don't necessarily hear people saying, oh my God, I need to tell you about my amazing broadband. So I do think that is a problem, and the big providers need to address the issues that their brands are maybe not as desirable and prominent as some of the actual content that's being delivered. And that harks back to, again, whether there will be some, you know, more of the bundling together and more of the buying content in to make the brands more than just a network.
No, that makes sense. So this one is a question from Steve L, and this one's to Rob. So Rob, in mobile, it's really hard to track revenue generated because of a SIM plan or phone contract doesn't really have a cash value. So this is obviously, yeah, the nature of, I guess, subscription products here. And what the question is what is your main measure of the value you drive to merchants?
I think it's volume, really. Ultimately, we know how many sales we drive for merchants, and we're obviously always in contact with those guys and talking about how much volume drive and what we can do to drive more volume. So I think in terms of measuring that and the fact we're in communication with them all the time, that's the way we gauge if they're happy with what we're doing, if we can do more, what else we can do, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Vicky, I guess it would be interesting to get your spin on this. How do you, when you're looking at, I guess, the performance of obviously affiliate stuff, I guess, again, yeah, I guess the view initially, I guess, attract is obviously the volume side. And what sort of measurements do you use to measure the value, I guess, of your affiliate campaigns after that?
Yeah, we were previously, as Rob said, very heavily driven just on volume. One of the things that we're doing more of, and we've really started to focus on, is an overall P&L view for affiliates as a dedicated channel, and really trying to understand from each of the different lines of business that we focus on, where is the optimum return across multiple different lines. So we focus very heavily on trying to maximise that outlay in terms of spend, to look at the lifetime value that's then generated to 3 overall. So we tend to find that customers in the affiliate space are much more price sensitive, as we know. They're much more actively looking at contract end dates, and they're a much savvier shopper. They're much more aware of shopping around. So in general, what we look at is the lifetime value that we would expect from that contract generation, with the commissions paid deducted. And we maximise ourselves in trying to make that as high as possible for 3, but still leveraging really good price incentives for customers to transact. So we look at the return overall, which is partially generated by the volume, but it also looks at making sure we've got the right products and the right platforms to get the right type of customer bought into our brand.
Yeah, so it actually links to this question, another question that's come from an anonymous asker, but I think, again, you might be best placed to answer it, but they talk about in terms of price comparison and recommendation sites that you work with. How do you balance, I guess, commission and payments to the publisher and the product benefits and the price points of the products? Is there a hard and fast rule you use, or is it like, what's your experience of trying to balance, I guess, yeah, that mix there?
Yeah, one of the things that we try to focus on with key pushes is having an exclusive price point with key partners as much as we can, to really try and have a unique tie-up with that particular branding to drive as much volume and calls to action. We've done that across multiple different campaigns, and also knowing the target segment. So trying to think about what type of audience is most likely to respond to a cashback deal, for example, and thinking about how we can leverage that cost of investment to get a longer relationship, for example, our 24 month SIM as opposed to our 12 month SIM. There's a lot of different audience types that would look at those two different products. So there's not a hard and fast rule. It's definitely about making sure we're considering what is the product that we're looking to sell the most of at that particular time. What is the return of utilising the right platform to reach that audience, and then how can we maximise that exposure working together to get the best volume generation, but ultimately how do we tie up that return that I talked about to get the best overall outcome for both partners.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. Sorry, I've got one more question which links up to it, and I'll move on to another panelist. But Steve L asks, say it mentions that obviously Free has a couple of affiliate programs, obviously including the one on Awin with obviously different prices and slightly different teams. Do you, with this return thing, do you sort of set different goals to different teams? Like I imagine potentially the same for different channels as well.
Yeah, so we have an overall affiliate program return on investment we would look at. So it's not segmented in the same way. We run it as an overall program. Our affiliate is dedicated as one channel. We do look at within that our cashback versus our comparison versus our content returns. But as a brand partnership, we look at it as an entire program of work.
No, that's really interesting. So I've got one for Ulrich, and I think it's potentially from another publisher who's made things, but the question is on how long on average does it take each journalist to fully test a new mobile phone product for it to be fit for a quality review?
Okay, good question. Actually, I think the smartphone is the hardest product to review. Why? Because you have a camera, a display, you have also connections, you have also an interface, a lot of performance. So we made the choice is not to use only technical test protocols. Actually, we use a technical test protocol, but just to measure value of performance. So the answer is about 7 days a week for just the review of one smartphone. So it's very long.
Yeah, no, that's very I imagine it's obviously quite a lengthy process, but I imagine obviously your users obviously appreciate the effort going into that. On a slightly different point, are you aware of how French Telco? So we've talked about obviously, particularly from a UK perspective, obviously based on I guess my background and the panelists, but about obviously streaming services like Disney Plus and increasing demand of Netflix. Are you aware of how like French telecoms are adapting their networks to go and accommodate these streaming platforms as well?
Yes, in France for a long time, internet service providers own all the services, like the phone, the TV, and internet, of course, in one box, like an all-in-one box TV. So it was very particular to the French market. And this time is almost over. It's a big change. Now consumers have choice. It's pretty new. And I think there are going to be even more choice in the next few years. We have a good example in France of this new use of the service like Disney Plus or Netflix. The good example is Canal Plus. They have split their offer in a multiple package. The first offer is just Canal for 10 euros per month, but you can pay more by adding options like add-ons such as movies and series. Personally, I use Canal and I pay 35 euros per month for an offer with Canal, Disney Plus, OCS, but also Netflix. So it's really interesting.
No, that's really interesting. And it links up nicely with this question from Chris Joy, which I'm going to direct at Caroline as our TV guru. But I think so the question is, does the panel think that streaming services will open up a licensing model? So they've got an example here is a website called Real Good, which offers access to sort of all streaming services under one umbrella with a lower cost. So, I mean, are you aware of, or do you anticipate that maybe as this complexity happens, that maybe there'll be a bit more of a sort of a bundling of streaming services, almost like replicating the cable TV packages that we had before?
To be honest, I'm not totally sure. I think it's an interesting concept. At the moment, the streaming services are trying to keep themselves pretty separate by generating their own content and by having original content that's their own and having it exclusively on their own platforms for a period of time. That said, BritBox is a prime example of where you've got previously competing content providers coming together and offering all that content under one umbrella. So yeah, I could see it happening in the future, but at the moment I think the services are generating their own content, obviously wringing all the value out of that, and then sometimes you'll see that some content moving across to other providers. But it's something that could definitely happen in the future. And ironically, BritBox are already there.
Yeah. For those of you who are watching internationally, BritBox is, it combines a lot of TV programs from a number of the sort of top UK, so it has BBC and ITV initially, I think Channel 4 are now a part of that.
It was actually launched over in the States before it was launched here, I believe. Because there's such a demand for great British content that we have. So
plugging our homegrown content there. So moving from the serious, from the fun world of TV to some more serious things about regulatory changes. So this one's been directed at Rob. So the question from Anonymous to Rob is, have regulatory changes encouraging switching been successful in telcos in the same way it was for energy? So for context to viewers from outside of the UK, there's been a number of regulatory changes by Ofcom, our telecoms regulator in the UK, in sort of making it easier for people to switch, such as sort of switching via text and other changes. But yeah, Rob, have you seen it being successful in encouraging switching in the same way it has for energy?
Yeah, sure. So I think initially there was a big buzz around it, and I think that was reflected in the providers we work with, in the offers they were putting out were a lot more aggressive, and ultimately we did see volumes around that time grow massively. I think now that the kind of dust has settled, we don't have that clearer view on the impact that it's had, but I think going forward, obviously being in communication with the providers, this is something we look to get feedback on as and when, because they'll have a better view on it than what we do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I know from the Awin's perspective. So I think we did some work which you can find on the Awin website around some impacts of text to switch, but we definitely saw an initial spike there, but I think it's definitely leveled out there. So Rob, so one thing I know, obviously Decision Tech, I know you partner with you obviously have your own sites, but you also power a lot of sites, and you work with publishers maybe that aren't sort of traditionally sort of always like maybe comparison focused. So I think this is an interesting question here from Jess that I'd like to ask you. So I think it's just an opinion, but do you think that the telco sector will utilize maybe more different publisher types, so like publishers or influencers that might maybe not be traditionally linked to telco, so maybe like targeting families and stuff? I mean, have you seen any interesting new partnerships from your end as well?
So I think an interesting one in terms of that is we launched on B2B in the last 18 months since we were taken up by Money Supermarket. We launched on energy, and we've been in the process of working with a lot of new partners in terms of energy. And what we've actually found is that a lot of those guys, when we've pitched them for the energy solution have then said to us, oh yeah, okay, do you do broadband as well, and mobile as well, and they've actually we've ended up partnering up with them from that perspective as well. So in answer to your question, yeah, I think there is a good opportunity there, and we're utilising that well.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Vicky, I don't know, do you sort of, from your perspective, from the free program, do you sort of see yourself working with more sort of influencer or maybe non-traditional partners?
Definitely. I think particularly in light of some of those big mergers that we've spoken about, our brand presence is not quite as far reaching through traditional methods, because we are a smaller operator. We are the smallest network operator. We are the challenger brand, if you like, in the space, and our way to reach customers in a unique way is to use different platforms to try and capture their attention, and also to sell them the benefits of coming with us as a smaller network operator, and to educate them about some of the challenging that we're doing, which you can't always fit into a traditional advert, but you can do leveraging the support of the affiliate program with content and with publishers. So it's definitely something that I think we already utilise and have great results with, but it's something that will become more and more prevalent for us as our brand has to fight against some of these big conglomerate companies to try and make sure that we can really educate customers on the benefits of choosing 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sort of on a linked note, so Steve, who I know has asked a few questions actually in here, but has said, and it's been quite popular. So for you, what makes a key partner then when it comes to this? So is there a daily volume threshold that you consider interesting enough to become a close partner, or how do you assess, I guess, your potential for partnership from that side?
So again, it comes down to a few factors for us: volume generation, and I guess the reach is essential in terms of trying to understand what is the opportunity for us together. That is definitely a factor. Also trying to affiliate ourselves with partners who can understand our brand ethos and can get on board with what we're trying to do differently. So you chatted about in the introduction that we do always try to set ourselves apart by trying to push the boundaries on consumer sort of interaction. So we wanted to do 5G home before anyone else, because we understood some of the challenges of waiting for an engineer and some of the traditional barriers we wanted to try and test to break. So definitely trying to align ourselves with partners who can understand that brand journey that we're on is very, very important. And again, trying to work in a relationship that serves both parties in terms of return. So trying to understand, if we focus over a longer term relationship rather than just immediate strategic campaigning, what can we do together to drive key peak periods of trading, but also what can we do in between those big peaks and troughs that we see throughout the year that can capture an entirely different market opportunity as well. So sharing learnings, sharing insight, and working together to try and tackle key periods of underperformance in trading and maximising the opportunities that present themselves around key product launches and Black Friday.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that answer, and thank you very much to everyone who's asked a question. Sorry if we haven't had time to get round to your questions, but if you just to close the panel, as I said, thank you very much to our 4 panelists for taking part in the webinar. We hope that all of you who tuned in found the webinar interesting and insightful. Just a plug, if you are interested in hearing a bit more about our latest insights from the telco industry, as well as all the other industries that Awin and ShareASale work in, we have some COVID-19 hubs at awin.com/coronavirus. But also, if you're a ShareASale advertiser or partner, you can also access it at blog.shareasale.com. And there will also be, obviously, keep an eye out on the Awin websites for future sector webinars and future sort of research and insight pieces. So that leads me to just say thank you very much for joining. If you have any questions that we weren't able to get round to, or would like to discuss any of the insights from the webinar, you can contact myself, alex.parmar-yee@awin.com. But yeah, or obviously do reach out via your usual channels. But thank you very thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you have a pleasant rest of your day, be that afternoon, evening, or morning, depending where you're dialing in from.